Good morning, everybody. We've got quite a session to get through today with subscription and preference management, looking at ways that you can use Eloqua to better engage people and to manage a little bit of segmentation in a more dynamic way. So let's get started and we'll walk you through today's session. So my name is Derek Bell. I'm the Customer Success and Marketing Director at Marketing Cube, and on the line today helping us is Jason O'Donnell, one of our account directors. So if you have any questions throughout the session, please feel free to shoot those through, and Jason will manage those for us as we progress through today. Let's have a close look at the agenda and see what's on the cards for today. So, of course, the first thing we want to talk about is preferences and subscriptions, and really looking at how you can work these two aspects together to really impact your content strategy. We'll then showcase a range of preference centers that we've seen, some using Eloqua, some not, and just looking at ways some of those could potentially be improved and how some of those have actually hit a bit of a home run. So we'll walk you through those examples. Then, based on the information that you're capturing from your preference center, it would make sense to realize that there's an impact on the way you segment your data. And so point 3 today, we'll walk you through that process as well. And then finally, as always, point 4, we'll focus on updates that are due with the 19B release. Now, there were a couple of questions that were sent through, so let me shoot those or answer those first. So what if people want to go to their personal email address and what if some people want to go to their personal email address and some to work? For example, alumni often want to receive that at a different email address, and how do we manage that? That's from Kath in Sydney. So Kath, my experience over the last 10 or so years with this particular conundrum is to really let people engage as they wish. For most of us, if we're a little bit of a data geek, and we know that Jenny at gmail.com is in fact Jenny Smith at xyzcompany.com.au, that we kind of want to merge those contacts. However, from the customer's point of view or the prospect's point of view, they've really given you that information for a specific reason. And we see it ourselves here at Marketing Cube. Here we have some of you who may well even be on the webinar today who provide your Gmail address through some subscriptions and others from a work-related point of view. So I imagine it's people wanting to try and manage their inboxes, maybe reduce the amount of content coming to them in their work email versus in their personal email. I personally have, I think, 4 or 5 email addresses, all for different reasons. Some with the volunteer organization I work with, personal one, work one, and a couple of others. So it's really hard to really manage that. My guidance to you would be really to let people engage with you in the way that they want to. So I hope that answers your question. The next one we'll probably take as a comment, and that is from Julian. He'd like to see lots of examples. So not a problem, Julian. We've certainly got some examples of preference centers today. So let's jump in and have a little bit of a look. One of the key things that we really wanted to focus on today was this notion of bringing it forward. You might have seen the movie Pay It Forward. It's not quite the same thing, but often we leave the preference center as that last thing that people do as they try to unsubscribe. So people are trying to eliminate and remove themselves from your campaigns, and so they get a little bit annoyed. They click on the footer in the email, and that's the first time they see what could be a preference center. The worst case scenario, they arrive at a window that just says, never email me again, and you hit submit and then they're gone. So what you certainly want to do is provide them with some options. And the earlier you can do that in the sales cycle, the better off you'll be, because you'll be able to understand and tailor your communications from the beginning versus waiting until the end when somebody's frustrated or annoyed because potentially they're getting the wrong type of information. So key message from today is don't leave the preference center as that last thing people see before they try to globally unsubscribe from you. So what does that all mean? Well, and what are preferences and what are subscriptions, and really what's the difference? Well, preferences are those things that people may overtly share with you based on a form submission. At a really rudimentary level, you might ask somebody what their favorite color is. That's not necessarily a subscription. Maybe the subscription would be around design. So they may have a preference of a certain color, and the subscription that they're interested in is design. So I'll walk you through some examples so you can see that, and we've got a few examples of customers that are using this concept with their preference center as well. But regardless, the ability that you have to capture that information will really have a solid impact on your content strategy. So let's have a closer look, but let's go to the basics and understand, first of all, how Eloqua will manage your subscriptions. So when you first add a contact to Eloqua, this is referred to as globally subscribed, and it is in fact the default. So the default implies that you as a business or as an organization have set in place the right business processes to ensure that once a contact enters Eloqua, whether it be from the CRM system, whether it be through a form submission online, or even potentially a manual upload, that you have business processes in place that mean that you can actually email those people. So that's the first step. Now, some time ago, or many years ago, Eloqua realized that a global subscription was often a little bit too brutal, because if somebody got frustrated, they would simply unsubscribe and then you could never talk to them again. So that's where, as Eloqua users, you'll be familiar with the concept of email groups. And typically email groups are driven from the point of view of a subscription or a particular topic that you wanted to focus on. So if we try and make this a little bit more customer friendly and replace those with words that make sense potentially to customers, things like events, newsletters, updates, special deals, these are just some examples potentially of what your email groups might look like from a customer facing point of view. Now, over time, people will initially start out with no status, meaning that they've neither subscribed nor have they unsubscribed. However, as you start to email people and invite them to subscribe or share information with them, they may begin to tell you, you know what, I'm really interested in newsletters, I want to subscribe, I want to make sure I don't miss out any of those things. Perhaps updates got a little bit too much at some point, and so they've unsubscribed from that one, but they're real keen on those special deals. Everybody likes a special deal. However, when it comes to events, they may well have subscribed, or not subscribed, but actually attended events, but not proactively subscribed at some point. So that could be something that you could work on from comms plan point of view, is trying to get those people to subscribe to events. But should somebody opt out, or should they globally unsubscribe, essentially that means game over for all of the email groups. So why offer subscriptions? Well, my experience is that people generally like consistency and certainty. And so if you go back in time to getting those magazines delivered to your house, you know that because you subscribed, and in some cases you paid for those subscriptions, those magazines arrived on a regular basis. So the email group functionality really gives you, as I say here, a robust and a thorough way to manage those subscriptions across your many audiences and across multiple campaigns. So the email group subscription, whether somebody is subscribed or not subscribed, or in fact unsubscribed, is closely linked and tied to each individual contact. So it really is the core piece of the platform. So as you're segmenting, you can access that information. You can include or exclude people based on their subscription or their unsubscribed status. You can also use forms and the campaign canvas to access that same information, to route people differently, to present them with different information from a dynamic content point of view. There's a whole range of ways that you can then use that subscription information. But the first thing you need to do is think about a more customer-friendly term that helps people understand what your specific subscriptions are. I've just literally done a little bit of thinking and put together a list of 6 different types of subscriptions here. The last one, Insight, has nothing to do with Eloqua Insight, by the way. It's just a term. Maybe it's like thought leadership, something like that. It could be a little bit different. So people could subscribe to these different subscriptions and then hopefully obtain information from you that relates to them. So where do preferences fit in? Now, this might become a little bit more esoteric, but hopefully not too much, as I've said there. But essentially, preferences, you can obtain preferences in 2 ways. One is implicit, the other is explicit. Let's start with explicit. So explicit could be that in the process of people registering for different events, or perhaps even by their Yeah, so registering for different events, is probably the best one. Maybe even coming in from the CRM. You could have very specific data that tells you about a person's interest in certain things or their preference for different types of information. So from the CRM, you might have information that relates very specifically to an existing customer and their product portfolio or their service portfolio. What is it that you've provided these people with? That would be a pretty explicit way for you to identify some information that would be of help to them. Now, implicit is that information that is implied. So from an implicit point of view, what we're really looking at is a person's digital body language. And if we can read their digital body language, we can imply that they are interested in certain things. Now, this could be because they've looked at certain pages on the website. It could be because they've engaged in a particular campaign more than they did perhaps another campaign. So there are a few different ways that you can gather data or implied information from people around their preferences. And so again, from a specific point of view, looking at explicit data, specific topics that people tell you they're interested in. So as I said before, they complete forms or they select specific topics or subjects along the way. So you've got that mix of those two. So then if we look at subscriptions, again, just looking at those different areas there that we talked about, let's pick on the first one, which is the events subscription. So from a preference point of view, what sort of preferences could you invite people to share with you that they could actually tell you they're interested in? So we chose our world of marketing automation to give you some examples. And these may be different preferences that people are interested in. So it could be marketing automation, it could be AI, data and analytics, design for automation, campaign management, sales and marketing alignment. These are all preferences that these people have or areas of interest that people have. And so next time you're running an event, from a segmentation point of view, you're able to look at everybody that is subscribed firstly to events. And let's pretend that you're running an event on AI. Well, then the next step would be to use your segmentation to identify everybody that has said that they're interested in AI. And so that becomes your the baseline, I suppose. That's the initial group of people that you will target for the event that you've got coming up. Now, of course, you can still exclude people based on other parameters, but that would at least be a baseline for you to get started. So again, the event would be the email group or the subscription. How would you capture preferences? Well, one way to do it would be to look at a single checkbox, potentially either on the contact or even in a custom data object, depending on the nature of your preferences and how extensive they might be. So with those two things in mind, you're then able to group together a segment and a target audience. Let's have a closer look though from a data point of view and understand how that actually works. So if we look at Eloqua as a big database, for want of a better description, it contains essentially two things. One is being the Eloqua contact, the other is custom data objects, and it's the email address that links the custom data object to an individual contact. If we go over the other side of the world of data to the CRM, so the CRM will have things like the lead, the contact, the account, and also potentially custom data objects, which can be mirrored into Eloqua. Now, of course, you can combine those things and have the two databases talk to one another, and your ability to do that means that you're in a much better position to be able to segment people based on their subscriptions, based on their preferences, and then I suppose also a little bit of profile information as well. Are they a lead? Are they, from an account point of view, are they a customer or a prospect or a business partner? What are they, etc. So you can use all of that data to get a closer look at exactly what's going on. Let's take a closer look at Eloqua and look at the email group subscription from a segmentation point of view and understand how that works. Okay, let's have a look here at a segment within Eloqua and get a closer look at how you can access the subscription information. So first thing you want to do is click on the plus icon, find a filter criteria, and then over here on the right hand side, if you just type in the word subscribe, you'll start to see the options that are available. So we could focus on, for instance, subscribe to groups, and then you may also want to focus on unsubscribe from an exclusion point of view, but we'll do that in just a moment. So you click on subscribe to groups, and then your email groups will pop up here in the middle of the screen. So let's take the Eloqua user group as an opportunity to test that. So we can see we've now added that to the window here. Then you need to provide a time frame. Typically, depending on what you're doing, it would be as of now, and you can see the date range is as of now. Then if we hit save, we'll start to get a number. And then you'll find it's easy if you label these, especially as you start to exclude and include people. So Eloqua user group, and this will be the subscribed people. So the other thing we want to do then is make sure we remove those who are unsubscribed. Unsubscribed to the user group. And so again, from a filter point of view, we bring that across and again repeat the process. So Eloqua user group, add, and I'll say as of now. Okay, so watch that 644 and we get 644. Okay, so we've included, so we need to exclude those people like so. And we arrive at 644. That's quite good. So it's exactly the same, which is nice. Then you probably also want to focus on your hard bounces as well. So you probably want to make sure you remove anyone that's marked as a hard bounce back or anyone that is globally unsubscribed as well. Make sure you change your operator to or, not and. So just simply click on that and it'll change to or. Update the criteria to as of now. And again, switch that through to excluded and hit save. Now we have another variable in our system which is called inactive, and inactive is where we have an individual who potentially has moved on from an organization and we know that they've moved on, then we actually flag them in the CRM as inactive, which is a tick box. What we wanted to try and do there was not necessarily misrepresent our data by just simply globally unsubscribing those people, because at no point did they actually unsubscribe. They simply have left the organization. So by having those as exclusions, we arrive at 563 people who are currently subscribed to the Eloqua user group that I can email and communicate with and share updates and invite to the webinar each month. So that's one example of how you're able to then use that information to make sure you're driving far more targeted campaigns to people. Let's have a look now at some what I'd like to call lost opportunities. So like you, I subscribe to many different things out there in the marketplace, and from time to time I feel the need to unsubscribe because it just gets a little bit overwhelming. And in some cases these experiences are pretty bad. So not that I should be too harsh on them, I suppose, but let's have a close look at some and let me articulate to you why I feel that the experience could be improved a little bit. So the first one comes from a clothing brand. I've deliberately tried to make sure you can't identify who this is, but the unsubscribe function essentially is really just saying, why am I going? There's nothing to incentivize me to actually stay and potentially share with the brand what it is that I'm actually after. So as a clothing brand, sort of the rudimentary stuff, like surely if I was male or female or just at a baseline, so I wasn't getting sales for dresses every week, would be a starting point. That, if I'm just looking at guys' clothes, then I could tell them that and they could modify and adjust their messaging accordingly. So there I see that as a lost opportunity, because they're really just saying, hey, why are you going? And I'm really, why would I bother telling them why I'm going? Just leave me be, really. Just let me unsubscribe. Okay, next one. I've left the name on here of the Art Gallery of New South Wales because I think fundamentally what they're trying to do here is excellent. It's just, I think the process could be improved a little bit. The key issue that I would have here from a lost opportunity point of view is that list of areas of interest is just so huge. And the other thing that's missing is any sort of description really as to kind of what it is. So, I mean, and also you'll notice, I mean, granted I'm on a 27-inch monitor, so there's a lot of white space, but at the same time, that whole interface could be a lot more attractive and give me a little bit more information about, the Asian art concept and the gallery shop, maybe trading hours. Can I buy online? Image sales, how does that work? I've got no idea what Fuse is, and I've got no idea what Peak is either, but I'm sure they're probably really cool, but I don't really understand what they are. That's just more of a lost opportunity than anything else, but definitely heading in the right direction, which is kind of nice. And then at the bottom, you'll see there is a link there to unsubscribe if I just want to say goodbye to everything. So the improvement of this one over the previous example is that I've possibly got an email. I'm a bit annoyed. I've clicked on unsubscribe and I arrive here. So at least I've got an opportunity to tailor what it is I'm going to hear about. So that's a step in the right direction. Now, following the New South Wales state election, the federal election this was, I tried to subscribe to just about everybody to get a little bit of an update on what everyone's doing. So this one is from the Labor Party, and this is actually the bottom of the email, so this is not the actual page yet where I unsubscribe, but you'll see the information at the bottom there, and we know that the laws in relation to the way political parties unsubscribe people is kind of a little bit different, but they're doing the right thing, I think, from a customer experience or a voter experience point of view. So I clicked through on that relevant information, but the downside is that this is it. So the next screen is pretty basic. It's kind of all over Red Rover. Again, there's no way for me to tell New South Wales Labor what I'm actually interested in. That, as a political party, you would think that maybe the primary portfolios could be put up there. I could let you know that I'm really interested in business, or I'm really interested in the environment, or whatever the case may be. But unfortunately, it's kind of all over. The only option I really have is to report them as a spammer, which if someone's a bit annoyed, that might be exactly what they do. So not the best example. So just to keep things fair and balanced, I also get emails from the Liberal Party. So this one does provide a little bit of a different experience. Again, we're looking at the footer of the email in this particular case. And you'll notice I've highlighted there at the bottom with those two yellow arrows that there are two options here. One is that I can update my details. The other is to unsubscribe, and it is to unsubscribe instantly. So depending on how annoyed or frustrated I am, I suppose, that's exactly what I'll do. So in this case, I clicked on the unsubscribe instantly, and it's all over Red Rover. But they do give me a chance. If I clicked on the wrong thing by accident, I am able to resubscribe. So that might save them a little bit. But there's a better chance. I think there's a lost opportunity there to try and engage the individual further by asking for more information. So there's some examples of maybe what not to do. Now, of course, there are ways to improve that experience, and we want to look at ways to provide a superior customer experience. So generally, a simple experience, I find, is the most elegant and worthwhile. And if people find it really easy to engage, then that's a good thing. Now, our friends at RSM, based here in Sydney, they're a global accounting firm. And what they do is they actually have a link directly from their homepage to their preference center. And so what they do is they ask you to fill in a little bit of information. They ask you then to identify what you'd like to subscribe to. And you can see there's a whole range of options there on the screen. And then below, they start to dig into a little bit more of a preference point of view in relation to different types of things. So maybe in this case, I'm interested in technical updates. So if I'm subscribed to different types of things above, then they can mesh that all together from a segmentation point of view to deliver a really nice experience, so that people are really getting, hopefully, in their inboxes, a more tailored experience based on those things that they've specifically asked for. So that's one example from RSM. Another example is Thomson Reuters, the legal publishing arm of Thomson Reuters. So this page would pre-populate with your email addresses. I just simply Googled this one to get to it. But they talk about the subscription options and give you those to choose from. In their world, they then talk about practice areas and the different types of law that are available. And then at the bottom, the last thing they do is ask you about your profile information. And you can go right down to your industry, your firm size, geography, am I New South Wales, etc., where am I? The other thing that's interesting here is they asked the question, are you a student? Now, the reason they did that is because they had a feeling, and they were pretty confident, that there are a good number of students who are actually subscribing to their content, which really, I mean, bless them, the students are learning and studying, but they're not really buying necessarily. They're probably borrowing from libraries, etc. And that's fine from Thomson Reuters' point of view. They're happy to have students participate and read their content, etc. But they wanted to be able to segment them out so that they weren't necessarily, pushing different emails to that group that would be inciting them to buy, etc. Because that kind of isn't where they are. But it also gives them an opportunity to talk very specifically to those who have identified as students. So a really smart way to go about that process, and acknowledging that there is a cohort or a group within your segment, and you're able to then target them directly. So that's a really neat tool. Then at the very bottom, you'll see you've also got the ability there to unsubscribe from all of those different things. Another example is our good friends at CBRE. So this is CBRE Residential Living, and their different options that are available. The key thing here, just before it slips off the top of the screen there, is that big green button to unsubscribe for 30 days. If you've recently been in a position where you're buying property, you'll know that you start to give out your email left, right and centre, and you start to get inundated. But inundated hopefully with lots of really interesting things. Well, what CBRE are trying to do is to give you the ability to be very specific in relation to what you're looking for. So they give you new project announcements, and you can subscribe to those by state, and then also by region within those states. So you can be very specific about what you're doing. The green button up above that says, give me a break for 30 days, what that does, it acknowledges that it can become a little bit overwhelming for people. And, if they're in the process of buying, but maybe they're having to go on leave, or they're away, or they just want some time out to think, that option means that they don't have to globally unsubscribe, that they can just literally take a break, and CBRE will hold off emailing them for a period of 30 days. Now, in the back end, the way that actually works is using an Eloqua program. And what it does actually globally unsubscribe them, because that is the master way and the most effective way in Eloqua to ensure someone doesn't get sent an email. But what that program does at the end of the 30-day period, it then restores the person's subscriptions to what they were prior to that 30-day break. So then the person would automatically fall back into relevant campaigns based on the preferences that they've indicated here. And of course, as we all need to have, there's the unsubscribe from all comms at the bottom of the page there as well. At Marketing Cube, we've taken a slightly different approach, not too dissimilar to what you've just seen. But if people come to our homepage and click on subscribe from our contact menu, we'll ask them for a little bit of information about them. Not all of those fields are required, but some of them are. We'll then ask them to subscribe to a range of different things, and so they're the email groups. And then the last stage is to really ask them what they're interested in or what their preferences are. And so what we've done there is, just using hopefully a nice graphical interface, is give people some options to identify different things that they're interested in. So if they just click on those various images, they'll get a nice big green tick, and that confirms that they're interested, or that's one of their preferences. The opt-in tick you can see there at the bottom of the page, along with the legal blurb, etc., that we all need to have, and then save preferences. And again, unsubscribe should they need to. So you can see there are a few examples. So Julian, I hope that answers your questions in relation to showing you some examples of what different organizations are doing. But don't let your preference center be an afterthought. And as I've said there's gold in them, their heels. So if we go back to the beginning of the webinar today, we talked to you about the idea of bringing it forward, and that is to take that concept of capturing a person's preferences, bringing it further forward in your engagement cycle. The earlier that you can have people share with you exactly what it is they're interested in, a far better chance you'll have of then delivering the right sort of content to people. But with all of that information that you're capturing, the next logical step is that your segmentation is going to have to change. There's no point to keep doing what you've always done and kind of expect a different result. So sadly, in our world of marketing, there is an expression that we use a lot, and it's this one: lists, lists, lists. And lists seem to be, or tend to be, very static in nature. They're often in Excel, they're often generally manually produced, and so they provide you with very little insight about a person. It's really largely, generally speaking, based on strictly profile information. So let's try and move away from that mentality of lists and really try to find out if a person is in fact interested. So let's start with those who have actually said talk to me. And those who have said talk to me are probably those who have come into your website through a form submission. Maybe they've had a good engagement with a salesperson, they've arrived in the CRM and have worked their way over to Eloqua. Let's start early and get these people engaged. So some ways that you can help from a segmentation point of view, or that you will find helpful from a segmentation point of view, is to start using segment templates. If you're simply doing save as each month, you're really losing or missing an opportunity to tailor those communications on a timely and more interesting way. Segment templates are great because they always help you manage inclusions and exclusions. And of course, you can always add to them. So it just means you're not starting with a blank sheet of paper each month, or in fact starting with a sheet of paper that was written over 2 years ago, because everyone's just been doing save as. Other things. So if you're always uploading contacts to Eloqua via Excel, that should be a little bit of an alarm bell, because that's really just simply profile information, generally speaking, depending on where you're sourcing that data from. If you're always uploading via Excel to build out a segment, that in and of itself should be a little bit of an alarm bell as to why you're having to do that. Now, of course, if there's no integration in place, that could be one of the large reasons. However, if you do have Eloqua integrated with your CRM and potentially ERP systems, then there really should be no reason to be constantly uploading via Excel. Now, the other alarm bell to think through is multiple email platforms. So hopefully you're running, you're on this user group webinar today, so you're obviously running Eloqua. Depending on the size of your organization, there may be a little splinter group over in some area running a MailChimp or something else, etc. And so what that becomes is a little bit of a liability for the business, because if somebody unsubscribes from one, but then you email them from the other, that obviously becomes a liability. So something to think about from that point of view. And this goes back a little bit to Kath's question at the beginning of the webinar today, where she talked about the multiple email addresses. My suggestion to you is to really just let those people be. Let them be, let them engage as they wish based on those different profiles. Just let them be, essentially. Merging them can become problematic, and then what if you don't, you choose the wrong email address, it's really not the one they wanted. Now they're getting information in their work email address when that wasn't what they wanted. They specifically set up a Gmail for it to go to a private inbox, etc. So best left alone, I think, in some cases. Okay, so how do you do all of this? Well, we showed you a little bit there a moment ago, but certainly from a template point of view, when you're wanting to create segments, let's have a close look. When you click on create an email, this is just an example of Marketing Cube's instance of Eloqua and a range of the different templates that we use on a fairly regular basis. And you'll notice in there that there's a range of templates based on subscribers. So we have event subscribers, we have those that are subscribed to Product Insight and Reviews, our blog subscribers, the Eloqua user group is in there. Yeah, so we've got Eloqua user group, all subscribers, and then we have two subsets there depending on the type of comms I'm sending for our customers versus those who are Eloqua customers but not necessarily Marketing Cube customers. So just helping me break that down so I can hit the ground running and not have to play around with filters, etc. And then the other great thing about using templates, of course, is the consistency in that process as well. So hopefully that's given you a little bit of an understanding about how a preference center will definitely flow through and have impact on the way that you segment your data as well. Let's have a look at what's new and what's coming in 19B. So 19B has happened towards the end of this month. Let's have a close look at some of the cool things that are happening that you should hopefully, well, you will be able to see right now. In-app guidance. This is, I think, one of the most exciting changes and enhancements to Eloqua in some time, especially for those newer users to the platform. So what this does essentially, it gives you, as it says, in-app guidance or support or help directly from within the email editor and also the landing page editor. So I'll show you a screenshot here in just a moment, but the goal is to expand that in-app guidance across to forms and also to the contact, I think, and to the campaign canvas, etc. So it's a great step in the right direction, and again, especially for new users, but really helpful for everybody. Progressive profiling, some of you may have noticed that in the recent update in February to the form editor, the new design form editor, that there was no progressive profiling. So that has now been rectified. That was just something that I think maybe just took a little bit longer for them to code, but that's all ready to go. So the new design form editor is fully functional. There'd really be no reason now why you would need to use the previous one. So that's a good thing. Now, if you do have forms, which I'm sure you will, forms in the old editor, all you need to do is open that up and do save as. And it's not that you then need to choose a format. It's simply in the act of doing save as, it will create the new form for you in that process. So if you've got forms that are constantly in use, or maybe some templates that need updating, it would be worthwhile to set some time aside to then convert those forms and then update your template chooser with those new forms as well. Let me just show you that the in-app guidance. So here we are in the email editor. No, we're not. We're in the landing page editor. Sorry, in the landing page editor, and you'll see the new icon, which is right there with the question mark. So what you do there essentially is click on that. It slides out as you're familiar with that interface, and here you've got some videos, you've got links taking you directly into the Help Center, and also additional links under best practices as well. So I'd really encourage you to have a closer look at that information, see what's available, but it's early, it's release 1.0 of this particular function, and have been working a little bit with the product development team on some aspects of this, and I'm very excited with where it's headed and the advantages that it'll offer both new users, but also those who've been using Eloqua for quite some time. So if you do get stuck, have a look there. You may well just find the answers that you need. And here again is just a screenshot for you of the progressive profiling, which is now available in the new form editor. Similar construct to how it was utilized previously. Once you click on that information, you can then provide controls over exactly which questions are shown to people. And this one's just a little bit of an FYI. If you're looking on the form editor and you're trying to identify your forms, are they the classic forms or are they the new design forms, there's been a new column added here, and it's called type. So where you see classic or design, that will be an immediate FYI for you so that you can see which form editor you're using. Some of them you'll want to go back and update, some you won't need to. They're more just for historical reference anyway. So that information will be helpful as you try to sort of prioritize what needs to be done. Now, just as you've got that same column in forms, you've also got it in emails as well. So in the email window under type, you'll see source. So source refers to HTML essentially, and design being the new one, which hopefully you've been using for quite some time. Then from a landing page point of view, you've got source. There's also design and classic. Now, some of you won't have any classic landing pages. We do, just from been using Eloqua for so long. The one missing here in this screenshot though is the design. So you've got source being your HTML, design being the new drag and drop landing page editor, classic being the old one. So just an FYI to you on that one. So just to give you some clarity as well in relation to forms and what's going on there, there are some updates that you need to be aware of. And starting in August of this year, so we're just in May right now, you won't be able to create new assets using the classic form design editor and existing assets will be editable. But as of May next year, which does feel like forever away, as in 12 months away, but it won't be that far until we get there, I assure you, all of the legacy assets will also then move into view only and won't be editable. So just as an FYI, you've got plenty of time. Now, what does that look like on a timeline? It might make it a little bit easier. So we're here right now. As of August, which is release 19C, you won't be able to create new classic forms, but all of your existing forms in the classic form editor will be editable. Then by May 2020, so we estimate that'll be around release 20B, the classic forms will move to be view only and they won't be editable. So the form processing steps will continue to function, just as an FYI. So if you do miss one or two, those forms will still function. They won't freeze up and die, that's for sure. They'll still function. And then at some point in the future, maybe, I don't know, they'll go away, hence the question mark there on that last step. So again, just to be clear, to help you with that save as process, what we're looking at here is the classic form editor. And over there in the top right hand side under the file menu, you've got the save as function. So by selecting save as, you will simply be able to create a brand new form. So you'll go save as, it'll pop up then to a larger screen, you'll give it a name, etc., and then you'll pop it into a folder, and then it will open and it will be in the new design editor scenario. It's as easy as that. So a much simpler task, which is great. Now, there were a couple of other release notes from 19B, which happened last week. So these are probably a little bit more for the administrator type users within the organization. So if you're running Salesforce with Eloqua, the new lightning fast Salesforce integration app is available and is generally available. So it's gone through extensive testing. We're starting to work with some customers on that at the moment. So if that's of interest to you, the key thing is around speed. So the new lightning fast. We're talking getting leads from Eloqua into Salesforce within seconds versus up to 15 minutes. So a much faster process, which is great. If you're working extensively with custom object records, you're now able to delete custom object records. So it's much easier to do that. And also field level tracking enhancements has been increased as well. So they're on the program canvas. So you've got more to listen or to be able to track there essentially. Now 19C is due around August. At this stage we don't really have any updates for you, so we'll keep an eye out and a close eye. If we hear of anything, we'll certainly let you know. Well, thanks for joining us today. We appreciate you making some time. Hopefully you found the session valuable, and we'll get some updates to you shortly in relation to June and what we'll be covering there. So have a great week. If you do have any questions, please do shoot through an email. You can use our contact us form on the website, or you could email us directly. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great week.